Hello and welcome to this flipped classroom about writing a final evaluation in CPE. I'm going to direct you to your student handbook. I'm looking at the section called evaluations. So if you're in your table of contents, you can just click on that link and it should take you to this page. You've already written your mid-unit evaluation, so congratulations on that. The final self-evaluation is significant for a number of reasons. One is that we do all kinds of what we would call 360-degree evaluation in CPE, meaning that you are evaluated from various perspectives and the program is evaluated from various perspectives. So we receive feedback from staff about you, from your supervisor, from your peers, and from yourself, and from other perspectives. The idea being that this gives us a fuller picture of how you're functioning and what you have learned. The self-evaluation is a critical aspect of this, especially because in CPE, self-awareness and cultivating that skill is so important. Another reason why this final evaluation is so important is that this stays in your CPE record, your ACP record. What that means is that for 10 years, an accredited CPE center will hold on to your application cover sheet, your final self-evaluation, and my evaluation for you. In the event that you need a copy of that to apply for some kind of certification or need a copy because you've misplaced yours for any reason. So this is going to go into that locked file that we keep for every student for up to 10 years. I also think that having the opportunity to reflect for yourself on where you have how far you have come in addressing your goals and to provide specific examples to share with your peers and your supervisor can be a really excellent way of bringing closure to the unit experience. And if you're going on to other endeavors, it can help give you that closure. And if you're moving on to a new unit of CPE, likely what will happen is that your learning goals for the new unit will be reflected in what you wrote in your final self-evaluation and what I have written in yours. A word about the evaluation that I will write for you all. Nothing that is in the evaluation that I'm going to write for you should be a surprise. There might be ways in which I describe the growing edge or the affirmation or a specific example I use that may not have been something I've specifically stated before, but the topic itself shouldn't be new to you. It should be something that we've already discussed. So what I'm trying to say is there shouldn't be any surprises in my written evaluation to you. And we also encourage that anyone who reads these evaluations reads them together, reads mine with your self-evaluation to get that big picture. You're welcome if you have a session of individual supervision with me coming up the next couple weeks, feel free to ask me what my evaluation is on any of the 311 point or the 312 points, depending on what level of CPE you are in right now. So let's look at the actual questions. In general, the thing to know is that this should be no more than 8 pages. You're going to read this to your peers, and you're also welcome to send it to them prior if you'd like them to read it beforehand. So you'll read this out loud with the group. I would encourage you to think about objectivity and observable behaviors as much as you can. Obviously, this is a subjective evaluation, but to try and think about things that are based on specific examples as much as possible. I'll show you more about what that means as we go through. So if you're writing a level 1 self-evaluation, the focus is on competencies that relate to pastoral reflection, formation, identity, and functioning. What you see here is that each one of the learning outcomes for level 1 CPE is mentioned in 3.1, 3.2, etc., up until 3.9, and I'll address level 2 in just a moment. And you'll see what we've done here is that there are questions underneath each outcome. Now, those questions don't come from the ACP outcomes or standards. Those are questions that we have paired with each outcome to make it more accessible for you to actually know what this outcome is asking of you and to give you sort of prompts about what to write and what to reflect on. You do not have to answer all the questions related to a particular outcome. Just pick what is most interesting or relevant to you. And in fact, you don't even have to answer or address the outcomes using these questions. If you feel that you're able to do it in a different way, I would encourage you to do that. So these questions do a really good job of explaining what we're expecting for your responses here and what you'll be presenting to your group. I'm just going to point out a couple here. Some of these will be familiar to you from verbatims that you've written in your mid-unit evaluation, but one that always tends to provoke some questions or even some disease is risk offering 311.4, risk offering appropriate and timely critique with peers and certified educators. So exactly as you did in mid-unit evaluations, the expectation is that you're going to offer an affirmation, and you're also going to offer an area for suggested improvement, or the way that we put it here is an area for them to grow or learn. And similarly for me, and I wanted to share with you another resource about giving feedback. Now, I know that all of you have the opportunity to practice giving feedback in your mid-unit evaluation, so feel free to continue that and try to implement whatever you may have learned from that experience. But this is a nice little article called 12 Tips for Giving Feedback Effectively in the Clinical Environment, and it gives these different practice points and tips. So I think we've already established a respectful learning environment, and in part of doing this flipped classroom and communicating the goals for what this feedback is, but you are also evaluating each other on each other's learning. So you may want to ask each other for a copy of your their learning goals if you've misplaced the ones that you received earlier in the unit. Also, hopefully you haven't saved all of your feedback to the end, but even if you have, it's a good idea to acknowledge that. Another point here is using observed behaviors, using more neutral language, and as you're interacting with each other, to confirm what your peers or your supervisor is hearing from the feedback that you've written down. It's also great to include action points, meaning suggestions for improvement, or how you might even work together with your peer to help them move forward. So feel free to take a look at this on your own. There are also many other excellent resources out there about giving feedback, but this is one that I wanted to share with you. So back to our handbook. So I'll just briefly refer to section 2, which is really important. So I mentioned that you are all receiving a 360-degree evaluation, but so is the CPE. There are several ways for you to provide feedback. This is one of them, and this feedback gets taken very seriously. We include this in our accreditation. We share this information with the PAG anonymously, of course, in addition to your exit interviews, the surveys that you're going to be doing about didactics and similar things, and other ways that you receive feedback on the program. So I would just really encourage you to be thoughtful and share what you would like us to know. And then we have level 2 CPE, if this is relevant to you. This focuses more on advanced competencies. So if you are writing a level 2 evaluation, please take a look at what's here. If you, for 312.8, this is really just an outcome about awareness. So either you've let me know that you're aware of these standards for your evaluation, and we've talked about it in supervision, that's a way of addressing this outcome, or even in the final evaluation, you acknowledge that you've reviewed the standards and maybe mention any questions you have or areas that you'd like to work on with regard to the standards to demonstrate that you have. So that's pretty much it for the final evaluation. I wish you all well as you write them, and I look forward to us being together to review them in just a couple weeks.